Hello and welcome to another video from FratelloWatches.com. I'm Rob Nudds. Today we're talking with Jean-Christophe Babin, CEO of Bvlgari and one of the major architects of Geneva Watch Days, the event that has finally managed to bring journalists, brands and a few retailers back together after months of separation thanks to COVID-19. Now before we start the interview, thank you for joining us.
Thank you to Fratello, for your support to the watchmaking. It's something we really appreciate and we need. So it's great to be together here in Geneva for those watch days that we've been really envisioning 6 months ago, and eventually the dream came true. And so I'm so glad and happy that we can have that beautiful fair. Unexpected, but beautiful, because as you mentioned, it's great to be together again after 6 months of digital life only.
Of course, yeah, it's been a difficult time for us all, trying to figure out which way we're going to move forward together as an industry. And yeah, it was a joyous occasion to come back together on Wednesday in the opening by the lake. For you, when you first conceived this idea, how did it come about? Did you contact other brands first? Did you reach out to contacts in the industry? What was it?
Well, it was somehow the same answer to a lack of watch fairs that drove us in January to do with the LVMH brands in Dubai, in the Bvlgari Hotel, the LVMH Watch Week. Why did we do the LVMH Watch Week? Just because we decided that between Basel 19 in March and Basel 20 scheduled in May, it was 14 months, which was far too long to wait to connect back with our retailers and to connect back with the media. And therefore we created the Dubai event. And once we had created successfully the Dubai event, because the Dubai event was extremely successful commercially as well as in terms of media coverage, same coverage as Basel last year, just 4 brands, 1 hotel, superlative hotel, the Bvlgari Hotel. And then when we learned about 2 months later Basel cancellation and watch on orders, basically we had exactly the same reaction, which drove us to create the Dubai event. But this time we said, okay, we won't do it in Dubai or in a city where we have a Bvlgari Hotel. It's not mandatory, we can do it in another city. And we tried to envision and to project the future. And for us, it was obvious that Switzerland and Geneva were the place to be. A, because Geneva is the capital of Swiss watchmaking, and B, because Geneva is enjoying a very safe image. And so we thought that whatever the COVID would do, probably to be in the perceived safest city of Europe, probably would be a plus to trigger people to take the risk to travel if there were any risk. And we were damn right at the end of the day. And then the approach was the same, and the other LVMH brands this time couldn't do it because they had already scheduled in July and August their road shows, so it would have duplicated basically what they have presented in the countries. So instead of the LVMH watch brand, who couldn't do it, I decided to gather other brands. So starting with brands I felt were meaningful and relevant, different from Bvlgari, but also brand I knew could take the decision overnight because it was really emergency. It was 6 months before August, so we had to take quick decisions. So I contacted very entrepreneurial brands like Breitling with George, like Ulysse Nardin with Patrick, rather than MBNF with Max. And in just a couple of hours on Saturday morning, we created really a core group of people sharing the same vision that 2020 was not dead, 2020 was not over. It's not because we had COVID in March that the year had to be sacrificed, as some brands suggested when they claimed that, it doesn't matter, we will present the 2020 novelties in 2021. We said that it's crazy, it's March only. We have 9 months ahead, so maybe the next 3 will be tough, but then why the second half of the year shouldn't be good? We should sooner or later control the COVID, and we should sooner or later resume our activities, the marketing, the novelties. So we refuse that destiny, and as no one wants to create a watch fair, we're gonna do it ourselves. And we're gonna do it all the more than we just did it in Dubai. So Bvlgari has absolutely the expertise to create events. It's a lifetime that we've been creating year after year many high jewelry events which are very similar to watch fair. Basically, you have media, you have clients, it's about 300 people, you need great venues, you need hotels. So basically, Bvlgari is also an event-making company.
I think it shows, it definitely shows, because for us as journalists, it's a complete breath of fresh air, totally different from the Basel situation where you would be stuck in the same exhibition hall all day, sitting in white cubicles, seeing watch after watch after watch. Here, the brands are able to tell a story with their environment as well as the products they're showing to you. We can take a little bit of a break in between each of the meetings. We can process information, and we make memories a lot firmer. And I think that's going to be a lot easier for us to write.
And also, humanly speaking, you recreate bonds which, with Basel or SCHS hectic rhythm is impossible, because at the end of the day, I mean, and basically, and I like what you say, what we agreed upon as founding brands, I mean, with a few brands I mentioned, were a few principles, very important. Digital, because we knew that whatever would be the evolution of COVID, some people for sure wouldn't come. We didn't know exactly which countries, but we knew that at 90% probability, some people wouldn't make it. So more than ever, the show, the fair, had to be digital. So physical for those coming, and digital for those not coming. Second, it had to be open to the public. I think the Swiss watch industry is suffering from a lack of openness. And so the first thing to do is, if you present novelties, just open your doors also to the public, and for free. The third point has been what you mentioned, decentralization, not only because COVID forces you to location with less than 100 people, but foremost for what you mentioned. I mean, we're in Geneva. Many brands have their manufacturers there, so why they shouldn't use their manufacturer or be forced to go in a cubicle? Many brands obviously have a boutique, because Geneva is one of the flagship cities of the world, especially for watchmaking. So why don't you use your boutique? And for brands like Bvlgari, just because, well, we have a boutique, we don't have workshops. Workshops are all in Neuchâtel, in Seigneau-Léger, in Le Sentier. But for Bvlgari, obviously, we are jeweler on the one hand, and we have many novelties on the other, and many guests. So let's rent an hotel, and obviously the best hotel in town. So each brand was really free to decide exactly how and where it would exhibit its novelty. And the fourth point is self-managed. Self-managed means that we didn't lay on or delegate it to an external body like Baselworld or FH. We did it ourselves. So first advantage, we were not dictated any rule. We established the rules which were suiting us, which makes a big difference. And second point, obviously, it's much more cost efficient, because basically the people we used have been people from all the 17 brands. We established different project teams, team leader, and just in 6 months, everyone was clearly in charge. There was really a weekly meeting to review, I mean, the roadmap, to review the milestones. And in 6 months, I mean, those people, for free, did exactly the same job as a very expensive fair would have done on behalf of the brand, dictating rules that don't necessarily fit everyone. And as a consequence, the cost of the whole event for the 17 brands, as I mentioned at the opening, is less than 1 million. When
it's fantastic.
When the traditional fair takes you by brand anywhere between 2, 3 to 6, 7 million, according to the size of your booth, according to the number of your guests. So really a total disruption and the emergence of a totally new business model for a 21st century watch fair.
So this new business model and the whole aspect of self-determination does raise an interesting possibility, because this format seems to work so well in a decentralized fashion that you could pick that up and we think drop it anywhere you like. So we talk about roadshows. Will there be London Watch Days? Will there be Singapore Watch Days?
You can imagine anything you want, because as we have managed to demonstrate that we can do it at a very reasonable cost, meaning by reasonable, something which is very marginal for Bvlgari and acceptable for a very small, newly created brand.
And it seems like you don't need to hold brands to ransom in the same way that maybe Baselworld did. You don't have to have attendance every single time.
Absolutely. I mean, we can have a year with 3 watch days and the next year with 0 watch days. You know, it's totally flexible. It depends. Already, I know that the brand with whom we are partnering are all pressing for having watch days in Germany somewhere. Because they are all enthusiastic as I am. You know, it's wonderful because we have a fantastic event. We present stunning novelties, which will obviously help to have a record end of the year, because it's mandatory that we end up the Q4 with a strong growth, because we have to enter 2021 with a strong momentum. If we want 2021 to be a record year, it must become a record year. And so a great attendance, and if it's not physical, it's digital, but from Geneva, from the Geneva Watch Days. So it's not from Bvlgari in Neuchâtel from the office, no, it's from the Geneva Watch Days. So it makes a total difference psychologically. And we're demonstrating that the cost is absolutely reasonable, so there are no barriers. The only advantage of Geneva, as I mentioned earlier, is that many brands have their manufacturers, so it's a kind of natural, highly qualifying location to showcase your novelties, because it's great also for your people internally to see journalists, to see retailers, because often people are a bit cut out of the downstream
For sure.
Side of the business. So if we go to another city, I don't know, Dubai, Miami, name it, we'll have the boutiques, we'll have the hotels, we won't have the manufacturers. So it won't be as emotional probably as Geneva, because it will never be in the capital of Swiss watchmaking. On the other hand, it can work extremely well.
Yeah, of course, they could be subsidiary events. You know, you could have Geneva as a central one, and then every year maybe go on the road with the same format.
You're right. This format is very flexible. As you've seen, the infrastructure is essentially a tent.
Yeah.
So it's something you find in any country of the world.
It's a nice tent.
Yeah, you know, we are luxury brands, so we cannot deliver a cheap experience. We have to make it cheap ourselves, but this, no one knows it.
Yeah.
What you know, I mean, here you have a very chic salon. Other brands, very chic boutique. So anyway, I mean, by all means, no one can imagine how low cost it can be, because it's looking much more sophisticated than Basel. And by all means, this is a true luxury experience, whereas even if you do a great booth in Basel, it remains a booth in a closed environment with artificial light and air conditioning.
Yeah.
Here you breathe, I mean, you see the natural light. To walk to Breitling, it's 5 minutes alongside the lake, and then you cross the river to go to Lisnau. So it's a really human experience. It's not, I mean, like being a fish, I mean, in a bottle.
Yeah, it's much more of a romantic trip
and
through
people do appreciate
watchmaking.
it, and we have more time, it's true, even though, I mean, my number of meetings is crazy, but at the end of the day, we have more time, and in the evening, it's great to have multi-brand events.
Yeah.
Why should we have mono-brand events? I mean, the mono-brand message is passed throughout the day. We have, 10 hours a day to convey our brand messages in my hotel, in his boutique, in his workshop. So in the evening, it's much better for the clients, for the media, not to have to decide, should I go to Breitling or to Bvlgari? Should I go to Listardin or to MBNF? No, you go to everyone. So if you want to talk with me, you talk with me, then you see Patrick arriving to talk with Patrick. What's wrong? It's great. I mean, it's fantastic, because the brand had 10 hours anyhow to convey their identities and novelties and their storytelling. Then in the evening, it's a commonwealth of positive energies that have pleasure to be all together, and I have a lot of pleasure myself to be with my competitors. I mean, I respect them. We know each other since 20 years. They are very smart people, so it's great to have dinner together.
Absolutely. Now, as you said before, you are predicting it to be a good year despite the
It will be a good second half. I think the first half, whatever you do, will never be compensated by a second half.
Has what happened changed any of your focus or your release strategy? Obviously, the timing has changed for everybody, but has it changed the products that you're putting out there? Has it changed the Bvlgari customer in any way?
Well, I think COVID has been an accelerator. COVID has not invented or created anything, but COVID has accelerated some trends, which were very important trends, and which will make 2021 very different from 2019.
Interesting.
Examples, e-commerce. It's true that if everything is closed, the only way to shop something is e-commerce. So e-commerce has been accelerating incredibly quickly, especially with companies like Bvlgari, which have taken advantage of the COVID contingency to anticipate the opening plans of 21 and 22 in the first half of 2020. So we were with 8 countries or market, let's say, with e-commerce, the major ones, and the 8 next markets were due to open by end 21, and eventually they were opened by end July 20. So combining organic growth in the established market and adding a new perimeter with 8 new markets, obviously our e-commerce growth is exponential, and this will never change.
Of course.
When you are used to omnichannel or to e-commerce, you never turn back. Second point, smart work. Smart work, it's a kind of graal of many employees, rightly so, because if you have to shuttle for 3 hours to work 8 hours, it's not ideal, neither for the company nor for the employee. It's really a shitty life, if I may say so. And obviously, Bvlgari started smart work well before the COVID last year, thanks God, because when COVID hit, and we moved from 1 day smart work to 5 days smart work, all our people were equipped for smart work. So we could avoid any kind of business disruption, despite the COVID, just because we had anticipated the smart work. But now, 6 months later, without necessarily like Google implementing smart work for the next year, because we believe we need to meet, probably we will move from 1 day a week smart work to 2 days a week. What's wrong? I mean, people had shown during the COVID that we could really trust them, that working from home, they were extremely efficient, and that eventually they had a better life balance, because those 3 hours shuttling you save, you can reinvest 1.5 for your company, and you can reinvest 1.5 for you and your family. So it's good. This will never change. I think the aspiration of people to work from home will grow even quicker than it used to be. And this is very millennial. The millennial, and go to the internet companies. I mean, most people already don't have even a fixed office. You have working tables, and so if one is free, you just connect there and you start working. It's not that you have your office, fourth floor, B35. No, you have a lot of rooms everywhere. If you go to Google in Dublin, no one has a fixed office.
This is probably the best thing that's come out of the COVID situation, the change in working habits and the smarter distribution of effort. What I'm really interested in, though, is with this...
So product-wise, I think it's very important because the watch industry, you know it as I know it, strangely, over the last 5-6 years, had no growth. When, by comparison, Bvlgari knows it well because we compete in many different categories. There was a lot of growth on jewelry, interesting. A lot of growth on fragrances, very interesting. A lot of growth on accessories, even more in fashion, and last but not least, in hotels and hospitality. So it's very strange because you look, and if I look at LVMH, also a lot of growth in wine and spirits. Well, so everything is growing a lot, like high single digits, year after year, for 5 years, 6 years. That COVID obviously put a temporary halt to that growth. But then watches, without any COVID, for 5 years, don't grow. They lose volume every year, they maintain value. So there's something wrong. And so we took advantage of the COVID to spend tens or hundreds of hours discussing with the markets, discussing with business partners, discussing with consultants, discussing with sociologues, to try to understand, but what is wrong in the Swiss watch industry? And obviously, the truth is that the watch industry has massively neglected millennials. And this was really, for us, the key finding. We studied our own marketing approach, our product. We studied also all our competitors. And eventually, what was striking us, and it was true, that, we as Bvlgari watches, because the jewelry did a great job, but Bvlgari watches, together with 99% of watch brands, have totally neglected millennials. We didn't create any product resonating to millennials. We didn't design any communication relevant to millennials. If you go on the few social networks of watch brands, it's something which is very conventional, very classical. And we didn't change anything in advertising. Yes, some brands, they have the mother and daughter on the advertising instead of the daughter only or the mother only. Okay, is it really talking to millennials? I'm very surprised because I have 5 millennials kids, and none of them would like to be featured with La Mama. So, you have to be authentic. You cannot communicate to millennials in an artificial way. So basically, after that finding, we wondered, then the next question, what it takes to resonate to millennials. And it takes a few things at the end of the day. You have to be authentic, you need craftsmanship, you need to be of very high quality, but at the same time, you need to match their style. And they are everything but classical. They are anything but formal. They want to enjoy luxury, to indulge into luxury probably more than my generation, but they want it their own way. And their own way means in a cool, relaxed, and formal way, from the communication to the product. So the product cannot be the same. The product needs a strong character, needs to be bold, and to match their own casual style.
Well, you've created a new modern icon with the...
But last but not least, it has to be timeless. And that is the problem. Because if it's timeless, you cannot invent a product from scratch, because who will demonstrate you that this product will survive?
Right.
Conversely, what Bvlgari did, we went into our archives and just to rediscover that the aluminium in '98 was targeting not millennials, they were not existing officially, younger people. But what is a young person in '98? It's a millennial in 2020. It's exactly the same target. And it was a huge success. And the line was stopped 10 years later. Why? Because it was growing too big. And that at this time, the management, with a vision of getting much higher end, saw it very difficult to have a big line, quartz, pretty accessible, when at the same time, after the acquisition of Roth and Genta, the objective was to sell Grande Complication. There was really a stretch. And I understand that stuff. But today, I mean, the premise for success of such a product are exactly the same as they were in '98. So we redesigned totally the product because we need to be authentic and craftsmanship. So obviously, we cannot have a quartz product. It must be mechanical. So this new range is mechanical. It has to be of high quality. So it cannot be a normal aluminium. It has to be an anodized aluminium so that it resists corrosion rather than scratches. It cannot be 30 meters waterproof because today the standard of sports watch is 100 meters, so it has to be 100 meters, and the use of titanium for the back case because titanium is much more resistant than aluminum. It has to be bigger. I mean, the time for 38 millimeter for men are gone. People now are 40 plus, so it's a 40.
It's still a very wearable size, though. It's certainly not a huge watch at all.
40 is cool. 40 is cool because it's the right balance between a small and a big watch. So I think it's the most consensual size, probably, especially, there's not a standard consensual size because what's true for Formula One because of the construction isn't true, and maybe another watch needs 41 to have a good balance. So, but this one 40. So basically, it's a totally new watch and chronograph, quite sophisticated. The chronograph movement is an integrated 6.4 millimeter chronograph, so it's a very, very good chronograph. I mean, by watchmaking standards in terms of nobility, and this will be obviously integrated in the two holistic approach. I mean, the packaging is brand new and totally different from any packaging ever designed by Bvlgari. It's like a monolith of 2001 Space Odyssey. Very nice. Very beautiful, very essential. So again, it's an experience. The packaging by itself, when just touch it, I mean, it's something really touch the packaging. It's an experience by itself.
It's very cold. It's nice.
Yeah, but aluminum and rubber, exactly as the watches. So, and everything is holistic. Communication starting 1st of September, together with the shipments, will be totally digital, totally through influencers, bloggers, social networks. Essentially readable on smartphones because, I mean, millennials, they don't watch TV as much as my generation. They communicate at 90% through the smartphone, through WhatsApp, through TikTok, through name it. I mean, and therefore it has totally been the whole package designed for a millennial. Doesn't mean that, I mean, elder people are not on the web. I mean, we know that people over 60 at 80% are on the internet, but maybe a laptop, maybe an iPad, when millennials are doing everything exclusively on their smartphone.
So even though this is a collection designed with millennials firmly in mind and the way it's marketed and sold is focused on that demographic as well, you're wearing the chronograph, it suits you. Is it your favorite model out of a new range?
Well, I think the watch will reach both targets. For millennials, it will be my first Swiss luxury watch. And like your first car, your first girlfriend, it's something that you will remember forever. Because those first experiences of extraordinary moments of your life, your first luxury watch, your first girlfriend, rather than your first car, are things you never forget. So you create a bond which will last forever. Your second purchase will be different. It's not a bad experience, but your second purchase has not the same value as the first one. I mean, your second car, probably you don't even remember it. Yeah. Your second girlfriend, probably you forget. And your second watch, I'm not sure you still remember.
Definitely remember the watch, that's for sure.
Okay, in your position would be. So, but jokes apart, it's important. And therefore, this will be my first luxury watch. For many people, they will join doing that, the Bvlgari joy, the Bvlgari Dolce Vita style, the Bvlgari community. And whether it's through Octo or through B01 or through a bag, through a beautiful holiday in the Bvlgari hotel in Dubai rather than in Bali, there will be our Bvlgari forever. Not exclusive, obviously. No one pretends that they be exclusive. This would be crazy, but Bvlgari will be one of the few brands that they like beyond any kind of product. They like the style of the company, they like the brand, they like the values, and they will be part of a community. And
well, in my opinion, you have the perfect second watch as well, because the Octo Finissimo
now, exactly. I come now to my generation. Obviously, we all first remember aluminium. We all got it at this time, especially in Europe. I mean, it was in Italy. Everyone had the aluminium. It was really the watch to wear, the hot watch. And it will be, again, the hot watch for the same people, for the same reason, because you feel younger, you feel cool, you have already several watches, and this one, is inexpensive. It's $28.50. When you are 50 or 60 years old, you have usually money enough. It's a cost of 2 iPhones. But unlike the iPhone, in 10 years down the road, it will be perfectly functional and also fashionable. So it will be, yes, for many people, an additional watch to the collection. Easy to purchase because $28.50 or $4,000, obviously, in absolute, it's expensive. But for people who have a certain job and who have 30 years of working life, obviously, it's not an Everest to climb. It's just a Jura mountain.
Will you do different colors in this range? Because you've got aluminium, so you've got the anodized.
Well, actually, we have already a fourth reference because the basic assortment is made of those 3 watches. I don't know where.
Third one's in here.
Is in here, sorry. Yeah. So the basic assortment is made of those 3 watches. So 2 solo tempo watches and 1 chronograph watch. But we already have developed a first limited edition, which is coming in blue rubber for the bezel and blue rubber for the bracelet, which is a capsule done together with Frecce Tricolori. The Frecce Tricolori are the Italian Air Force air show. And during the COVID, there has been a turning point and emotional moment in Italy when the country was totally locked down, very strict condition, 1 hour per day out of home, just to purchase drugs and food. Police control every 200 meters, so very tough. So people started, after 2 months to be depressed, and all of a sudden, Fratello Tricolori, which is a bit of pride of the nation, said, okay, now we're gonna every night to give the best air show ever in each and every single Italian city. And believe it or not, this has raised an incredible pride, an incredible emotion, and this has created for the first time. I'm Italian myself, and I've been living in Italy the last 20 or 30 years, because I was in Milan in 90. For the first time in life, except a few occasions like the final of the Soccer World Cup or the last championship won by Ferrari in Formula One. But this was one-off, unfortunately, because it's a long time they didn't win. But for the first time, I've seen national unity. Italy is a very fragmented country with different culture, habits. For the first time, the COVID and the Fratello Tricolori have recreated a sense of national pride. Not regional or communal pride, a sense of national pride. And this has been a turning point when Italy has started to restart. And how did they restart? Go to Rome those days or Milano. You have hundreds of concept stores selling incredible masks, which are obviously crafted in Tuscany. Because as Tuscany had to reduce the work hours for ready-to-wear, because ready-to-wear was not selling because stores were closed. What they did masks, but not, conventional masks, crazy masks. And mask now is becoming a very, very hot business in Italy.
Of course, yeah.
Likewise, Ferrari started to do respirators, so totally different. So Italy all of a sudden reunited and started really to fight the COVID in a very, very proactive way, everyone contributing. And there, Italy will never be as before, because Italy has, through the COVID, learned how to live all together as a united nation rather than a divided nation. And it's much better. And so it has been extraordinary. So this watch is already, after 3 days, pre-sold.
Okay.
Because all the Italian clients want it. And they want a lot of them. Because they know that at 2850, hooking with one of the most emotional moments in contemporary Italy in terms of national unity, this will be the watch to have, more than this one. Because people want, that dial with the national flag, with Fratello Tricolori, because they're proud of it. They're proud to be Italian for the first time in decades.
That's amazing. It's obviously going to be a classic and a collector's piece, I think, for you.
Oh my God, yeah, because we have crafted 1,000 only, purposely. But this, yes, colors.
All gone?
Oh, yes, after 3 days, come on.
Why didn't you tell me about it last week? I might have bought them. Unbelievable.
No, you will have to go to Italy to buy it.
Oh, fine. Well, it'll be a nice holiday.
No, actually, it was not restricted to Italy, but we presented it first for respect to our Italian partners, because obviously it makes sense, essentially, or primarily if you're Italian yourself, and if you were in Italy during the worst COVID days. So then the value you attribute to the watch is extreme.
Yeah, it's hugely emotional.
If you are German, American, or Chinese, the Fratello Tricolori, you don't know even what it is. So you will like the aesthetic for sure. You will like the Italian flag because everyone likes Italia worldwide. But you may not have the same emotion as Italian who have seen by their eyes Fratello Tricolori changing totally their mindset.
Yeah, it is fair that they got the chance to buy it first. Yeah. I'm a little bit envious. But I'm sure there'll be many more exciting special editions created around this concept, because the rubber gives you a great opportunity for chromatic variants, and the cases as well, of course.
Absolutely.
They could be blue, green, red, whatever.
Being for millennial, obviously, we have to be open-minded. We have to work with millennials as well.
You're not going to start customizing for each individual customer, are you?
Well, this is something we started with the Serpenti 3 years ago. You could have up to 900 different executions out of 4 different cases, 12 different straps, and 5 different dials. So when you were, it was 900 combinations. So we won't customize, with exclusive pieces, because at 2850 you can't. You can do that in high jewelry or in high-end Grande Complication. So in high-end Grande Complication, every year we produce several one-of-a-kind masterpieces. In high jewelry, we do the same, but those pieces, let's not forget, they cost anywhere between 500,000 to 3 million euros. So obviously, it can work. You have no business model working if you want to customize the 2850 watch, except for engraving. So today with laser technology, you can engrave for a very marginal cost, something which somehow customize the watch. For instance, Octo Finissimo, we started engraving the very, very slim case back already 3 years ago with whatever you wanted us to write. So it could be your signature, it could be your name, it could be your fiancé name, it could be your birth date. So this we do, and we do also the case back. For instance, I was with Waco this morning. He has already aluminium because he wanted something engraved. We did it. So this is something we do. We have some stores equipped already to do it in the store.
Perfect.
And at worst, you wait just 2 weeks and we do it at the after sales. But this is a kind of minimum customization. The true customization, right, is exactly what we did with Serpenti, when you can have up to 900 different combinations, for instance, or 1,000 or 500, meaning by that it's very unlikely that we'll ever cross someone with the same watch you are wearing.
Yeah, true.
So the point is not to be one of a kind. The point is to be
expressive,
to have the pleasure, to have something unique, i.e., not meeting someone else with the same thing around the wrist.
One thing you might be likely to meet other people wearing, though, is the Octo Finissimo, because you've created a new modern icon. This is the family that is going to...
Yeah, Finissimo is really, probably the most extraordinary journey in watchmaking, at least of the last decade. Let's not forget that Finissimo was born 6 years ago only. And in those 6 years, it's not only a story of 6 world records or 50 international awards, rather than of 3 Geneva Watchmaking Grand Prix. It's the story of the first ever ultimate watchmaking expression of masculine contemporary elegance. Because the inception of Finissimo was not dictated by a race against thinness at all. It was the obsession for Bvlgari watches to deliver to gentlemen the elegance we do with jewelry and jewelry watch to ladies. And so we wondered, but what is today the new standard in masculine contemporary elegance? And obviously the answer was the slim fit. The slim fit has been the ready-to-wear revolution for gentlemen over the last decade. And so we wondered, is there any kind of contemporary slim fit in watches? And we didn't find it. We could find some slim fit, but in very classical brands, but there was not actually any contemporary slim fit. Why? Because it's difficult to be contemporary if you are very, very slim. Usually if you take a round watch, if you make it much slimmer, it loses any character. And so we thought with Finissimo, we have a fantastic opportunity because the Finissimo case is very geometric, 110 angles. So if we shrink it or if we squeeze it, probably we'll have something very slim, but at the same time, something with strong character because we keep the 110 angles.
Well, people are comparing this in terms of significance to the Nautilus and to the Royal Oak, and this is our generation's, the millennial generation's, classic steel sports watch or titanium or
exactly.
Whatever.
And so we started the story for 6 years with, I would say, super watch, like supercars. So watches which go beyond imagination, pretty expensive as well, with very high-tech materials. But watches eventually which were bought primarily by collectors or people already very knowledgeable of watches and never came as their first watch. And the reason was that the perceived usage of the titanium watches, wrongly, but perceived eventually, is reality. Because if people perceive you as a wrong person, it will be very difficult to turn that around. So if you are perceived as an occasional wear, because people think that it's so thin, it's so light that perhaps it's breakable, so I will use it only in some occasions. Obviously, you go as a second watch to a certain target, like the supercars. No one would use a supercar on a daily basis because people, right or wrong, believe that the supercar cannot withstand the daily shuttling, which is less and less true, but the perception is that. And that's why the brands are doing GT cars, because the real market is a GT. It's a supercar, a bit less performant, which people perceive as a daily car. And if you look at a Porsche 911, you find Porsche 911 in all cities, at 20 per hour queuing in winter time, and no one even wonders whether I should use or not my Porsche 911. It's a daily car. So basically what we wanted to do with Finissimo as the next step, which we are doing now, is to create the GT part of the business, which is obviously a big part of the business. And here comes the sports 100 meters Finissimo. So it's a steel watch. Steel is the standard of luxury watches. All the brands are steel and sporty. The leading ones. So we have to be steel and sporty. So we are steel and sporty, 100 meters, screwed down crown, very nice combination of brushed and polished, and a dimension a bit different from the watch. So we have the same diameter, 40, but we are slightly thicker for two reasons. One is aesthetic, because we have borrowed to the chronograph the magical balance between thickness and diameter. And second, functional, because to go at 100 meters, we need a slightly thicker back crystal, and we needed a slightly thicker case band just to screw down the cone. And at the end, I mean, the result is magic. Also, the watch is coming at a better price than the titanium because crafting titanium takes longer than crafting steel.
Yes.
Titanium cost per kg is the same as steel, so it's not the titanium cost, but then the crafting is much more complicated. So at the end of the day, you have more cost, so more price. So this watch is at 12,000 Swiss francs, which is right in the heart of the core luxury watch market.
Absolutely. And I think it is the model around which the reputation of Bvlgari for the next 10, 20 years will be based and extolled.
Well, probably the icon will forever be titanium. It's the watch of all records, the chronograph of all records. It's the absolute quintessence, I mean, of contemporary masculine elegance. There's nothing, I mean, more contemporary than the titanium with the same material used for the dial, for the case, and for the movement. So this is something very special. But obviously, if the icon is the titanium, the best-selling one will be the steel.
Perfect. Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you. I hope I didn't take too much time.
No, it was a pleasure. It's fascinating as always, and I look forward to talking with you again. Thanks for watching another video from Fratello. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Fratello Watches, and check out the website fratellowatches.com for all your latest reviews and news. And if you're a German speaker, we've got a new website for you, especially fratello.de. So please check that out, and please join in the conversation with us. Thank you again.
Thank you again. It was great.